Town.
Hello neighbors, and welcome back to Nightmare Town. We are Betty Boom.
And I'm Mandemonium.
And you're listening to Nightmare Town. And this week we are doing...
John/Jane Doe.
The creepiness shall unfold.
Yes, we've got many good things to read to you. Well, not good in the sense of good, but good in the sense of interesting.
Mine starts off really sucky and then gets awesome. So, just saying. But anyway, this week, well, I don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit before we jump into it?
Let's see, do we have any news?
I mean, I have personal news.
Goings on.
So, let's see. I had Pirates and Mermaids camp at one of my jobs.
Ooh.
That was fun.
I want to do that at work and get paid to do that.
Oh, yeah. It was 3 days of me dressing up as either a pirate or a mermaid. And the mermaid was really fun because our oldest kids were 4 and I showed up with, like, scales and all that fun stuff.
I saw the makeup. It looked fabulous.
I believe it's on our Instagram.
Yeah.
So,
I think it is.
Speaking of our Instagram, if you go over to Nightmare Town 18, you can find us on the Instagram. Shameless plug.
And we just put up an adorable photo of one of our longtime co-hosts, who is usually unnamed. But she's here.
She gets named, but usually because of the scratches.
Yeah.
Let's see. Also, we record on Wednesdays, and we post on Saturdays because it gives me time to edit. But today, I went in and put in my notice at work. Because I have a new job that I'm excited about. But no, the old job I was there for 7.5 years. And it's going to be weird.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's going to be all just an abrupt, complete change of scenery and everything.
True story. But it's something I've been wanting. And now it's something that happened. And I'm really excited about this new adventure. Anything you want to add in?
I was trying to rack my brain. I don't really have much going on lately. Other than my vacation's almost over and I'll have to go back to work soon.
Oh, sad face.
Yeah.
But I guess we should tell you guys some stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started last week and Mandemonium's going to start us this week. So take it away, friend.
Alright, guys. So I've got a little creepypasta for you this time because I've been on a kick of those lately.
It's a good thing to be on kick on.
And this one is entitled Smiling Jane Doe. Written by David, gonna say your last name wrong, Fulling, maybe? We'll link the website as per usual, if you would like to read it again. At no point during the night was she more than a half mile from the police station, but the park was thinly lit and the road snaked through forest in both directions. I took a personal interest in her story after I learned about how badly her body had been mutilated. The details continue to flood in, and I'm still working to tease apart the evidence. What is undeniably clear is that a killer still roams free. He is out there somewhere, and he is stalking new victims in the neighborhoods that I call home. For this reason, I can for now only insinuate many of the things that I know. To reveal certain details would be to paint a target on my own back, and so they cannot be shared here. With that said, here are the facts as I understand them about the night that Smiling Jane Doe died. They named her that way because her lips had been peeled away with a blade.
Oh.
Yeah, this one gets gritty.
Oh, snap.
Just no warning this time. Just
no warning.
Into it.
Sorry, continue.
Nah, you're good. It was her barred teeth glinting like wet porcelain in the dawn's light that first drew the attention of the jogger who discovered her body. The park where she died is a famous one, and Smiling Jane Doe was not the first woman to be murdered there. I fear putting too fine a point on the location of this place, so let me just say that this park is located inside my nation's capital. You have likely heard this park's name before. Locals will be glad to tell you all about how the unlit roads wind deceptively through the wilderness here, and how those same roads become especially treacherous at night. They might also mention how the bridges arc high over the lower roads beneath them. These are the sort of bridges that make push and fall murders appear neatly like suicides. Smiling Jane Doe was from out of town. She was likely in the city that weekend just to take in the sights. No abandoned car was ever found that could be tied to her. if at some point she had been carrying a purse or a wallet with ID inside. It seems that the killer took her identity with him. We can't yet guess how or why she had traveled to the district, or where it was that Jane called home before she died. It's possible that she was hitchhiking and found herself here entirely by chance. Or instead, Jane may have been visiting this place deliberately. Maybe she traveled here with a happier purpose in mind for herself, and she simply remained outside a little too late after dark. Here are the events of that night, as plainly and as accurately as I can describe them. Smiling Jane Doe tried to flag down a car that was traveling through the park at approximately 10:40 p.m. The car's driver was a female in her late 30s, and this crucial witness unfortunately Chinese.
we walked and got Chinese food before. Because my new house, we can do that.
We can. It's pretty nice just being able to walk.
Get Chinese food, walk back.
To some food. Anywho, the car's driver was a female in her late 30s, and this crucial witness unfortunately continued down the road without stopping her vehicle. The driver would state later that she barely saw smiling Jane Doe there in the darkness, and did not notice her until the victim was close enough to narrowly avoid being hit by the car. In this particular part, and especially at the time of night, no driver can be judged too harshly for refusing to stop for a stranger. After all, carjackings sometimes begin with the false premise of a woman in need of help.
That is very true.
Yeah, which is really creepy. Our witness driving past was a mother of 3 young children. I hold no ill will against her for making that choice. As the car disappeared around a bend in the road, smiling Jane Doe fled instead into the thickly wooded forest of the park. She was trying to lose her attacker, and the dribbling trail of blood across the road indicates that her pursuer had already made some progress in causing her harm. If she had pressed a little farther into the woods, she might have caught the lights of the consulate buildings on the far side of the park. There were security personnel there, and they were surely keeping watch all night. They could have saved her easily, had she just made it far enough to be seen. Yeah. Unfortunately, at some point, Jane Doe doubled back the way she came. I believe she did so in an attempt to lose her pursuer. The night would turn out to be a litany of heartbreaking moments in this way. Jane Doe came so close to salvation more than a dozen times, but split-second decisions are rarely the wisest ones. This is especially true when someone is in mortal terror. Smiling Jane Doe squandered her chances to survive, and each time she did not realize what she had done. Any one of us might have suffered precisely the same streak of bad luck, and especially on a night like that. She found more winding road as she pressed through the trees, but she could not guess where she now stood in relation to the rest of the twisting roadways in the park. Jane followed the path to one of the park's elevated bridges. As I mentioned before, these bridges loom fatally tall over the ground beneath them. They are the kind of structures that can make murders look like accidents or suicides. It was at this point that Jane spotted an ambulance speeding over the bridge from the opposite direction. She attempted to make the vehicle stop, but the ambulance was already responding to a critical situation on the northwest side of the city. It continued on without her and would soon arrive at the scene of another gruesome homicide. I believe, in fact, that Smiling Jane Doe's killer had 2 victims that night. But the details of his earlier murder are a story for another time. For now, I intend to honor Jane Doe by somberly describing the facts of her death alone. She was alone on the bridge once more as the ambulance sped away. I believe that Smiling Jane Doe then saw her killer approaching from the shadows. She likely considered jumping from the bridge, hoping perhaps to end the awful pursuit once and for all by plunging to her death. This assumption is supported by the bloody footprints that were found on the bridge's upper railings. Trace evidence suggests that she decided at the last moment against leaping. She continued on with footfalls that indicate a sprint. She was fleeing down the road. At this point, it bears mentioning that Smiling Jane Doe was indeed barefoot, and that she was bleeding from her feet due to the loss of her shoes. I believe that our unknown killer confiscated Jane's footwear simply to torment her. Evidence indicates that he did a great many things that night, which were intended to prolong the chase of his human quarry. I believe that our killer caught up to Jane Doe several times before she reached the roadblock. He would injure Jane in some new way each time, or else do something that restricted her movement on foot. This is why he took her shoes. He let smiling Jane Doe continue attempting to flee at least 4 separate times. It sickens me to this day to consider it. The DNA evidence collected from Jane Doe's body indicates that she met 2 distinct assailants before her death. It is my theory that after fleeing from the bridge, Jane Doe found a pedestrian walking along the dark road in the opposite direction. I suspect that he was moving up the road toward the bridge when she found him. Jane Doe must have begged him for help, and I can only imagine the horror that she felt to learn that the pedestrian was in fact an accomplice of the killer. From the psychological profiles, I feel confident that the second man toyed with smiling Jane Doe before revealing that he understood exactly what kind of peril she was in. I believe that he restrained Jane Doe and allowed the killer to catch up to her once again at his leisure. It was at this point that our killer most likely carved out her eyes. Police reports indicate that exhausted road flares were found on either side of the road from where the mutilation of Jane Doe likely began. This would imply that the killer and his accomplice built a fake roadblock, probably in passable imitation of a city-authorized detour. They were preventing traffic from flowing naturally through the park. In doing so, they ensured that no witnesses would enter the road where they tormented Jane in her last moments. The spirals and aimless trails of dried blood at this location imply that our killers allowed Jane to continue trying to flee from them. They let her keep attempting to save her own life for most of another hour. Now blinded, Jane could not navigate the dense underbrush and trees. If by some chance she managed to wander too far up or down the roadway, it would be a simple matter for either the killer or his accomplice to shove her back towards the center of their sick arena. On the night that I learned most of these details, I remember praying that there was nothing more to be discovered. I asked God for my research to prove that she simply bled to death there. It would mean at least that Jane experienced no more fear and that she felt nothing when they cut away the skin from her face. The coroner's report would grant me no such mercy, however. Smiling Jane Doe was given drugs to keep her awake. Her mind likely understood and bore witness to those last moments of her life, even more vividly than the killer himself can claim to remember them. No family ever came forward to claim smiling Jane Doe. How could anyone guess that their daughter had ended up that way? If you were told, could you even accept it? I went to see her in the city morgue before she was incinerated. Ever since then, I've worked daily with investigators to bring her killer to justice. What was done to her cannot go unanswered. The details I have excluded here have been excluded deliberately. This has been done to protect the dignity of the dead. There is more, yet besides that remains unknown, even to me. Let it be known, I have absolutely no plans to take my own life. I do not intend to die in a certain park that will not be named, but can certainly be guessed. If I am found dead in that particular park, then it means that the killer has learned something about me before I was able to learn something about him. I don't intend for that to happen, though. I will do my best to outwit him. There are far too many unhappy ghosts in that strange patch of wilderness already, and I do not wish to join them. By the grace of God, may my work help smiling Jane Doe find peace.
Holy fuck.
And that's why I'm glad this is just a creepypasta and not real, because it is horrifying.
That is so well written.
Right?
Oh my god.
Like, as much as I love some of the cringy, poorly written, hyper-realistic blood type of creepypastas, I really love the just so well-written ones.
Agreed.
That really grab you.
Well, because then you're like, is this real? Is this real, but they're trying to tell us that it's not real, but it is real, and then there's a whole conspiracy theory that happens?
Exactly.
Oh,
But,
fuck.
so, as gruesome as that story was, I've let you off easy being that it was presumed fictional. Whereas, your story tonight is not so fictional, is it?
Mine is not. I went back to my roots, and I did a true crime. Sort of. So, I'll have to explain that more in a little bit. So, I got my information from HuffPost.com. I will be putting a link in the description below. But I'm doing the story of Tint Girl. Do you know Tint Girl?
No, and I would make a reference, but I don't think it's safe for life, so I won't.
Probably not. On May 17th, 1968, Wilburn Riddle was scavenging glass telephone pole insulators along the U.S. Route 25 in the backwoods of Georgetown, Kentucky, when he came upon what looked like a bundle of green canvas, tarp, or tent. Thinking it was just trash, Riddle kicked it with his foot. It must have been a pretty hard kick because it sent the bundle down an embankment. As it tumbled, the tarp unwrapped to reveal what was inside the bundle. You want to guess?
Was it a Jane Doe?
That's no fun.
Was it a Tint Girl?
It's no fun. I shouldn't have told you the title. There was another, thinner tarp inside, and this one was body-shaped. This was before the time of cell phones, so after Riddle processed what he was looking at, he ran to the closest gas station and called the sheriff. That amazes me. I know it's 1968 and they don't have cell phones, but still, the fact that he had to run to a gas station.
Yeah.
Once the sheriff arrived, they cut away the covering, revealing the badly decomposed body of a young girl, frozen in the stiff position of someone trying to escape.
Aww.
There was no identification, so the police issued a public appeal for any family members with a missing relative to come forward. No one ever did, and the media very quickly dubbed her Tint Girl because of the material that she was found in. The unknown girl was laid to rest in the Georgetown Cemetery with a heartbreaking epitaph. Tint Girl, found May 17, 1968, on the U.S. Highway 25 North. Died about April 26 to May 3, 1968. Age about 16 to 19 years old. Height 110 to 115 pounds. Reddish-brown hair, unidentified. Flash forward a few decades, Wilburn Riddle, the man who found Tint Girl, has had and raised children. His daughter Lori was dating a man named Todd Matthews, and as people do when they are dating, Lori tells Todd the story of how her father had been the one to find Tint Girl. Todd became somewhat obsessed with this unidentified girl. He traveled to her gravesite and visited area newspapers in search of any small clue that might lead him in the right direction. Todd also looked into missing persons from the same time period, which was very smart in my opinion.
Yeah.
This was still before the time of the internet, so Todd's research was limited to phone calls and interviews. For 10 years, he gathered shreds of information from various sources with little success. All this changed with the dawn of the internet. Suddenly, Todd was able to contact people who were long distances away. There were chat rooms, forums, whole websites that were dedicated to missing persons and cold cases. One evening in 1998, Todd stumbled across a posting that put a lump in his throat. There was a post from a woman named Rosemary Westbrook in Arkansas, who was looking for any information about her older sister who had went missing since the later part of 1967. Her sister had gone missing after being seen in Lexington, Kentucky. Her post said, "My sister Barbara has been missing from our family since the latter part of 1967. She has brown hair, brown eyes, is about 5 foot 2 inches tall, and was last seen in Lexington, Kentucky area. If you have any information, please contact me at the address posted." Todd contacted Rosemary and told her about Tint Girl. From there, Rosemary got in touch with Kentucky's forensic medical examiner. On March 2, 1998, Tint Girl's body was exhumed and DNA testing proved that she was Rosemary's missing 24-year-old sister, Barbara Ann Hackman Taylor. Barbara, her carny of a husband George, and their young daughter had moved to Kentucky without telling Barbara's family. When Barbara had gone missing, George claimed that she had left him for another man. George Taylor was never officially implicated in Barbara's murder, but was believed to be the killer. George died of cancer in October 1987. So George was considered to be the killer in her murder because he worked as he worked in a carnival. And what do they have readily available at carnivals? If not tents and green canvas. Just saying. So this is directly from the HuffPost, and it says, solving the mystery of the Tint Girl's identity gave Todd Matthews a sense of purpose. He joined the Doe Network, a bulletin board of missing persons cases, and helped build it into a national database. It now contains thousands of cases. Todd also assisted in the formation of EDAN, Everyone Deserves a Name, an organization comprised of volunteer artists and sculptors who donate sketches and facial recognition to help with the identification of bodies. In a final act of dignity, a second grave marker was placed beneath the original stone in Georgetown Cemetery. It bears Barbara's full birth name minus her married name, her nickname, and approximate death date. She is Tint Girl no longer.
That's nice that she's no longer just known by, Tint Girl, Jane Doe.
She has her name back.
Yeah.
And that her family knows what happened to her.
Yeah, they've got some closure.
Now, I had heard about Tint Girl. I want to say I heard a couple of other podcasts about her, and I was like, yes. But I don't remember which ones it was.
Yeah, that's not one I've ever heard of, but that's really interesting how he helped set up the whole database thing.
He was...
Or contributed to it or whatever.
He was one of the first, what they're calling armchair detectives. And so it's people that basically go and they start contacting people in all these cold cases and like, hey, I'm not a cop. Would you want to talk to me about this? Like, do you remember what happened here? And
I see.
So it's people that take time out of their lives to do that, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
So yeah, this episode's short and sweet. But, I don't know, do you have anything else to add? Oh, so this is a story that both of us looked at and thought about telling, but then ultimately decided not to do. But I feel that the fact that both of us looked at it, it should be mentioned.
An honorable mention.
An honorable
share.
Yeah, we're not going to go into super detail about it, but as you know, well, you might know, my boyfriend has a son who lives with us for half the week. So I am very... I get very into the things that he's into because it's something we can share. So I really like Ninjago, and I really like the Lego movies / video games, which some of them are really good.
Oh yeah. The humor in them is hilarious.
Truth.
Personally.
But, just recently we watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
So good.
It was fantastic. Except yesterday, I will say, his shoe is untied, and I mentioned it, and he goes, I'm trying to be like Miles. And I'm like, no, we don't live anywhere near where you would get bit by a radioactive spider. Tie your shoe. But, and then Amanda has a younger brother.
Yeah, I've been hanging with him all summer, and both of them, are around the same age and really into Roblox.
Oh, there is, I don't know if that is Roblox. There's one where you're just a square and your whole goal is to eat other squares.
That's funny.
It is a really fun game with how simple it is.
It sounds addicting.
And I don't normally play games that involve me yelling at the TV, but I have yelled at my TV because of Roblox.
But yeah, so while we were both, I assume you stumbled on it the same way I did, we were both doing some research, and the first thing, I typed in, was John/Jane Doe stories. And, the first several results are literally from Roblox fandom, I guess. And so I found this little blurb. It just reads, John Doe and Jane Doe are official test accounts created by Roblox CEO David Baszucki. Sorry, Roblox fans, don't know how to say his name.
That's a fun name.
It sounds fun. On June 25th, 2005. They're famous for being mentioned in many different fake hacker stories throughout Roblox's history and were mentioned in many clickbait videos. So it's kind of like a whole universe thing, and I just keep scrolling and seeing all of these. What's the deal with John Doe and Roblox? John Doe, real or fake? John Doe and Jane Doe, are they hackers? John Doe and Jane Doe, creepypasta. Like, just so many things just within this one little universe.
Well, I mean, we saw that whenever we looked at the Jeff Drowned. What was it, Jeff Drowned?
Oh, Ben Drowned.
Ben Drowned.
Yeah, from Legend of Zelda. Oh.
Sorry, I think my friend Jeff is here.
Speaking of Jeff.
Jeff? But, yeah, we saw that with the Ben Drowned stories, where someone took a video game and then just created this whole community and world around it.
It's like, yeah, it's a whole like universe and world now, and I really do enjoy creepypastas that kind of do that. They just kind of like Slenderman and all that. They just turn into one big whole collective thing. It's really interesting.
For this episode, I thought about doing a creepypasta, but this was one of the first episodes we've had in a while where I could get back and talk about true crime, and I found this excellent list of just unsolved, like, Jane and John Doe cases. There was one girl that I was actually telling the boyfriend's son about because I just kept going, nuh-uh. And he goes, why do you keep saying that? And so I wound up telling him a little bit, but I'm also trying not to corrupt him because he is a child.
Yeah.
It's a bit early.
But you're like, no way.
But it was this woman that was found, I believe, I might be misquoting, but I believe she was found in a Texas hotel. And they found identification on her, and she was murdered, and they found identification on her, and they were like, oh, okay, so she's this woman, and they went to go notify her family, and whenever they did, they were like, no, because so-and-so's sitting right next to me. And it was a woman that had stolen another woman's identity and then was murdered. And so they were never able to find out who she actually was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And she had fantastic 80s hair. But, yeah, I think that's all of our stories.
Yeah.
So you want to shake that hat?
Yeah, I'll shake her up.
It's my turn to pick. And if you guys have your own stories to tell or ideas for the hat, go ahead and hit us up at nightmaretown18@gmail.com or on Facebook. Also at NightmareTown18, and on Instagram, also at NightmareTown18. There's just, everything's NightmareTown18, or you can find us on Google, and that's just Nightmare Town Podcast.
And don't forget about our new YouTube page, also Nightmare Town Podcast. Yeah, I believe it's Nightmare Town Podcast, but it's on our Facebook and Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
What's our subject?
It just says boom.
Well, couldn't be a more perfect subject for you
to draw out of the hat.
I feel like that one was meant for you to draw out.
I'm pretty sure I wrote it for me.
I'm just glad that you're the one that drew it, because otherwise I probably would have read it and just stuck it back in the hat.
Rude.
And been like, no, she needs to find this one.
Well, I did.
Well, that could be interesting.
Oh. I thought you said you didn't want that to be your catchphrase.
I don't, but I don't have lots of words sometimes. You guys need to help me come up with a new catchphrase, or, just be like, hey, you don't need a catchphrase, you're not a cartoon character.
Aren't we, though?
Basically.
I mean, I could be.
More or less. We could pass.
It'd be fun.
Cartoon characters.
We should do a makeup with that. I think we're stalling.
Yeah.
Why are we still talking?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think
What's wrong with us?
We're doing this southern goodbye.
You mean the kind where you're like kind of inching in the doorway, like holding your bag, ready to leave, and
you continue to talk, and then they follow you out to the car, and then you continue to talk in the car.
Yeah, you roll down your window and
3 hours later.
Yeah, and then you're driving away and they're waving and you're still yelling, goodbye, see you later.
Yeah,
Good old Southern goodbyes.
good old Southern goodbyes. But anyway,
Until next time.
tell us a story. Bye!